Yeah, I know when I was a kid, she drove me by the house they lived on Saxon Avenue, which was kind of in the southeast side of Akron, and it was just off of East Avenue. And they stayed there until about 1940. Now, she was born in 1925. Uh, she was an only child. She was overprotected because she had some sort of a rheumatic fever type of um, heart ailment, and the doctor had advised Dee Dee, don't let her do strenuous activities. So she never learned how to ride a bike. She never learned how to swim. Not that she didn't want to. It's just that she was kind of overprotected, and the only child of a overprotective mother. Her father wasn't like that, but her mother definitely was. Um, but they wanted her to go to a better high school, so they moved to Packard Drive so that she could attend. We make fun of the pronunciation nowadays. I might have to come back to that. It was right at the end of her street. She lived on Packard Drive. Packard opened up into Copley Road after about a half a mile, and then right there is the high school. Very well known high school, as a matter of fact. So anyway, she graduated from there about the time that all of her male friends were going off into the service when they got out of school. Um, Buchtel, Buchtel High School, named after an educator. So she lived in that house until the day she got married. The wedding was actually performed at the house because my dad was not a Catholic, and at that time the church had a policy, well, you got to be Catholic to be married in the church. It's still a Catholic wedding, but you got to stand outside. So, and we have pictures of that all over. And then, of course, every house that she lived in after that, I lived in too until Lodi. And even then, I know where else. The next house she lived in is where Edie lives now. So, boy, we could write a biography of hers. She was she was a shade of romanticism and a shade of kind of a. She loved any man in uniform. That automatically elevated his appearance a notch. But again, I think it was that generation too. Because she liked Frank Sinatra. And Frank Sinatra was not in uniform, to the disdain of every man, including my dad, that was. So Frankie got to entertain the ladies and make money. She worked at a downtown Akron department store. She went to Akron U. She actually joined the Women's Navy, but it was on a reserve basis, and the war was over before she really needed to be called up. But she was always proud of that. But she had a social life. One of them was Ara Parsegan, but they weren't dating or anything like that. Actually, I think the deal was she was friends with Ara's younger sister, and she got Ara to come to the house and meet my grandfather, and he probably didn't come down off the clouds for a week.
Who didn't?
My grandfather. He was a sports fan, and Ara Parsegan, this is way before Notre Dame, and he was just a local football star that everybody paid attention to. Yes. Oh well, she met my dad. They both were working at a Firestone laboratory. So they weren't in the manufacturing up the street. But you know, the laboratory, I guess they did a lot of testings of rubber and various things that work with rubber, including other things that Firestone made, because they made brake lining, because my dad sold brake lining. So all that was probably tested there. And you know, you can imagine this was when all these veterans were back and they were working. This is good for the economy, but it also, at their age, you know, these are still 20, 21, 22-year-old American youth. And so there was a lot of commingling and marriages, and thus the boomers were born January 1st, 2000, or 1946. And that lasted until, well, 80's still a boomer, because that lasted until 1964. Then the X's came. But I don't know where I lived when I was born, but after that I lived in, I think they had a section of a house on a place called Balch Street, which I have a vague idea of where that was. I spent a lot of time, daytime and nighttime, at my grandparents' house, because both parents worked and or went to Akron U. And then that's when my dad got his first real job, and he became a salesman. But we didn't have to move right away. We didn't have to move until we moved to Indiana, and that was like, well, he'd probably been at Firestone for a couple years by then. Plus, he probably worked at Firestone while he was in college too, because he only went to college because some wise old guy told him it'll make a difference in your income, and it mattered to him. But I remember once seeing one of his old textbooks on business management, and I'm leafing through it. This is a hardbound textbook, and on the margin in pencil, somebody wrote, "Who cares?" Which was my dad's attitude towards higher education back in his era. He certainly believed it once I graduated, but again, for the same reasons. I think, okay, they've met. You've met. We've introduced Jim and Edith, and we've introduced Les and Addie. So, who else is there?
Let's pause.